Oh, is this recording already? Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and if you're watching this late at night, good evening. This video is going to be about the project, which is an IDU or interdisciplinary unit with French languages and social studies, also known as individuals and societies. Now, this unit is the summative project. The big project task is to create a travel story or a travel blog in a digital format. There's a lot of options available to what that digital format could look like. You could use Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, many other, you could make a website, you could use technology, whatever technology you're comfortable with. Don't let technology be the barrier for this particular project. The goal is to look at things like Canadian identity, Canadian geography, and how the two things mix, as well as specifically French language and French culture and French identity in Canada, as we're collaborating with the French languages department. And so we want to look at also how French Canadian history and French Canadian identity has led into the history of Canadian multiculturalism, and make sure that you capture the idea of what you think about Canadian identity in your project, in your opinion. Here we go on this very quick video, and I'm going to try to make this video fast. This is a very quick review of how to do this project. Now, in 30 seconds or less, if I can, I want to talk to you really quickly about why Canadian identity is such an important topic to Canadian leaders. First of all, Justin Trudeau talks about it, and he said there is no core Canadian identity, no mainstream identity in Canada. Justin Trudeau said, concluding that he sees Canada as the first post-national state. What did he mean by that? It's a complicated topic, but he does say there is something. He meant there is an identity, but it's a sense of values. It's a sense of our Canadian laws and some aspects of how our history has created these sense of values and laws. There's somebody named Candace Malcolm who disagrees with him about this, and it talks about how our Canadian identity is rooted in our history. Okay, but why is that so critical? Why is it so important? Well, this has been an ongoing struggle as the French Canadians, known as Francophones, and the English-speaking Canadians, known as Anglophones, try to get along with each other. In a nutshell, there were all kinds of incidents, including a conscription crisis in Canada, including riots in Montreal, when there was racism against a hockey star named Maurice Richard, and which eventually led to a sense of dissatisfaction in the racism towards the French Canadians, which led to people wanting change. Some people wanted peaceful change, some people wanted political change, and some people wanted violent change in Canada. And there was a terrorist organization that came called the FLQ that wanted change, and they wanted it now, and they were willing to do violent action. Now, I've got a whole separate video on this topic, but it's become an important issue. Now, the other thing to know is that this has also became an important issue in terms of Canada had a sovereignty referendum, and they have had two of them. The second one of them, it was very, very close to ripping Canada apart, which is why this is such a critically important issue for Canadians to think about. Is what does it mean to be Canadian? For us to think about keeping the country as Canada together as a whole as we know it, and to continue the progress that Canada has made to make Canada a great, inclusive, multicultural society that is safe and welcoming and inclusive of all people. Okay, here we go. There's also some important things to remember about the First Nations context, and one of the things is that when Quebec was considering separating, it raised the issue that some of the First Nations territories are in both Ontario, Quebec, and the United States of America. In particular, the Mohawk Nation, it spans all these different areas, and therefore that creates a conundrum, a whole debatable topic to look at there. So perspectives is going to be a big part of the unit when you're traveling around Canada. Also consider the Cree were in Quebec, and they raised the issue about this as well, that a lot of their members wanted to stay within the United Canada. Now, please forgive me, I'm going through this intro really fast because the topic I want to focus on in this video is the criteria for the project. I have a whole separate 1-hour video lecture about Canadian identity. If you want to look at that, feel free to go look at my account to look at the other longer lecture about Canadian identity. But the last thing I'll say about this topic is Bill Clinton, a United States president, said, "In a world darkened by ethnic conflicts that tear nations apart, Canada stands as a model of how people of different cultures can live and work together in peace, prosperity, and mutual respect. That is a very key quote to think about. Whether you agree or disagree with that, how is Canada living up to that quote, and how is Canada making mistakes and needing to improve in areas related to that? Another topic connected to Canadian identity and French culture in Canada is Quebec passed a law called Bill 21. And that's another thing you can see in my other video about the difference between collective rights and individual rights and how that's implemented in Canada in my other video. Okay, consider what are our values and what is our identity. Historical and contemporary injustices challenge the narrative and identity of Canada as an inclusive and multicultural society. In order to understand Canadian identity, the British North America Act is a key place to start, and that's also talked about in my other video. Is Canada a great country because it's willing to be reflective and look authentically at its past? Well, Chief Robert of Canada says truth and reconciliation is Canada. Something about that this is a part of Canadian identity. The part of the past that has some dark stains, but also the fact that Canadians are willing to look at it with truth and looking at it with the goal of reconciliation and moving forward to a better Canada. Now, for the sake of the speed of this video, we're going to move on to the actual instructions of this project about the travel blog. Okay, this video is already going longer than I want it to go. Let's take a look at the instructions here, and then we'll look at the criteria and the assessment part of this project.
Travel blog and reflection. Who am I? Due December 4th, 2020, 7 p.m. Instructions. Travel blog and reflection. Who am I? Create a travel blog, website, or equivalent. You could choose to use MS Word, MS PowerPoint, MS Sway, or other digital tool for creating this project. You should have images with the text. See instructions. For socials, criteria D will be the focus. Therefore, 1. For socials, remember to include at least 3 perspectives. 2. In the reflection, remember to consider connections to significance, perspectives, opinion, current events, Canadian identity, continuity and change, and ethical judgments, recommendations, opinion. 3. Example. Consider Bill 21 in Quebec. What is the significance of this law? What are the perspectives? What is your opinion? Is this law right or wrong?
Okay, now I'm going to exit Immersive Reader, just to be aware that you can use Immersive Reader at home. Now you can see here, those are the basic instructions, but the longer instructions here, the more important instructions are actually embedded in these 2 Word documents. So there's a summative task instruction and the reflection piece after, which is also very, very important, a big part of criteria D for social studies. Okay, let's take a look at first the summative task. Okay. Let's take a quick look at the criteria here. Create a travel blog or vlog, and you can use an Instagram account or make it look like an Instagram account. Language. This blog must include research about specific dialect, variety of French, as well as providing information about the region with a tourist lens. For example, famous well-known landmarks using French articles, le, la, les, un, une, etc. Provide examples of common phrases, sayings in specific dialect, variety of French. What does your specific region look like? Think in terms of geographical descriptions, climate, topography, temperature, weather, physical region, and resources it has to offer. So think about climate in terms of what is the average weather like. Weather changes day to day. Climate is the normal average weather. But also when it's talking about topography and physical region, now think a bit about the soil or the land or the rocks. Is it very rocky? Are the mountains rounded? Are they steep? Is it very flat? Is the soil good for farming or bad for farming? And what minerals are there? What resources are there? Okay. How can a traveler have an authentic Canadian experience that encapsulates the Canadian identity? What shapes us and who we are? So when we're talking about the Canadian experience and Canadian identity, we're looking at also like historical landmarks, historical museums. Can you find a historical museum in the city that you visit on your virtual tourist vacation? Symbols. What would a tourist buy as a souvenir to represent that region? Customs, values, beliefs, traditions. What does your blog need to include? A catchy creative name for your blog, information as to why someone would want to travel to your chosen region, which can include a top 5 activities list, photos of your specific region, as well as artwork, vocabulary, as learned in Individuals and Societies and French language class, a map of your region. Also consider a First Nations language map. 5 symbols that you must, 5 symbols that you believe best suits this particular region, a coat of arms, and a works cited. Cite your sources and ask me more information about how to cite your sources. I also have a whole separate video on how to cite your sources. Okay, next. So part of the purpose of the reflection is to give evidence to your ability to do critical thinking. So you want to be thinking not just answering these 4 questions, definitely answer these 4 questions, don't miss them, but also think if there's something else you can use to add to your evidence of your critical thinking, add that as well. For example, if you find a current events article and you can create an analysis and discussion about the pros and cons, the ethical judgments about that current events issue in your region, do that to show that you are a thinker and a critical thinker about the issues, the significance, the importance of those issues, the impacts of those issues. For example, though, these are the questions that are the must, the minimum that you need to include, but it's not the maximum. The minimum: what is culture? What does culture mean to you? Use both educational support and personal examples. How does the years in which we grow up and where we live impact who we are? An example of that would be, some people would say that because it's very, very cold in Quebec, it has affected the type of diet, the type of food that people like to eat the very cold winters. And you could Google that topic. How do you think your cultural identity is dependent on where you live? Does geography impact culture and identity? Why or why not? Please provide specific evidence that you've learned in class to support your opinion. Okay, so how can you find the rubrics? How can you figure out how you'll be assessed? The rubrics are here attached at the bottom of the assignment. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to open up the rubrics. Now the focus of socials is on criteria D, specifically this strand here. So I'm going to focus on this strand first, which is the most important strand. So to get to level 2, identifies different perspectives and minimal implications. To get to level 3-4, identifies different perspectives and some of their implications. It interprets different perspectives and their implications. So, why did I mention Bill 21? Bill 21 fits into this where there's lots of different perspectives on the law in Quebec called Bill 21. So if you were to analyze and discuss and look at the different perspectives on Bill 21 Quebec, you would be able to come up with various perspectives and various implications of those perspectives. But it doesn't have to be that particular current event story. That's just an example. You could find something else that would allow you to demonstrate your ability to find different perspectives and look at the implications and talk about the implications. Remember to use because in your supporting sentences, the word because. So I have this opinion. I think there are 3 reasons why I have this opinion, and then because. Also use quotes from things like current events articles or websites or textbooks to show support for why you have your opinion. Okay, next. That brings me to the other part of criteria D is about making arguments, stating your opinion. In particular, you need to say your opinion, but if your opinion is also about an ethical judgment, that makes it even more interesting, more important, more significant. But then also you want to make sure that you're making valid arguments with points to support those arguments. Next, communication is also a big aspect of this, and communication is going to be focused on primarily by your language class. Now, there's another aspect of marking. There's another element to the criteria of this project, which is the IDU criteria, which stands for Interdisciplinary Unit. criteria. That means it's a criteria specific for units where we're collaborating between two different subject matters, in this case, French and socials, or languages and individuals and societies. So you're going to go to the Files tab to find those specific criteria, and we're going to look here and find the IDU French Canada unit here. We're going to go down here and we're going to look at Summative Task Assessment, and we're going to find out what we're going to need to make sure we include based on this criteria. This is a really important thing to do. Take a look here. Okay, we got a criteria A. Let's see what it says. Demonstrates extensive necessary disciplinary grounding. Let's go through these really fast. Criteria B. Synthesizes disciplinary knowledge and demonstrates consistent, thorough, interdisciplinary understanding. Okay, so this is a really tricky one. This is where you're going to look at like the fusion, the connections between French language, French culture, and individuals and societies and social studies. So you're looking at the connections between the two different subject matters. Are you able to make connections? Are you able to make connections? Are you able to make connections? Consider those connections about how French-Canadian culture and identity has impacted Canadian culture and identity and multiculturalism in Canada. An example of that would be how Canada has had the Multiculturalism Act inspired by biculturalism, the two cultures of Anglophone and Francophone working it out. Okay, moving on, we have communicating. Let's look at level 5-6. The student applies communication skills in interdisciplinary learning that is generally organized, organization, clear and coherent, beginning to use selected forms or media effectively, documents relevant sources in using a recognized convention. So again, sources and a recognized convention. So one of the things we've already talked about is your quotations should have quotes around them, quotation marks around things that are quotations, and after that you should have brackets with your source. So we've already talked about that recognized convention, so that is an expectation that your quotes would have quotation marks and then the source in brackets after that. Also, you can see my whole video on MLA 8 formatting. Now, criteria D, reflecting. Let's look at 5-6 level. The student demonstrates significant reflection on his or her development of interdisciplinary understanding, explains the limitations and benefits of disciplinary and interdisciplinary knowledge in the specific situations. Okay, so what are the key things? Significant reflection. Let's take a look at 7-8. We got the word sophisticated and evaluates. So remember, evaluation is the process of stating your opinion and stating it clearly and stating what has value and what doesn't. Also backing it up with things like ethical judgments where you're making something about this law is right or this issue is right or wrong. What are the important, significant implications of that? Okay, here are some resources to support you with this unit. So under Teams, under General, Unit 3 IDU, French Canada, Files, you will find a PowerPoint, you'll find a whole bunch of Word documents. So if you've lost any of the paper handouts, they are there. There's also one thing in here that's not a paper handout, which is called IDU Example French Sentences Adapted. So if you were to click on this Microsoft Word document, you could see some example of some ideas of French sentences. So make sure you consider if there's anything in here that would help you with your project. Okay, what else is there to help you with your project? If you go to Posts, to help you get going with your project and you're struggling with your research, there's all kinds of things under Posts here to help you get the background information for your project. There's one I just saw of the bonhomme de neige, which I have now misplaced. So I'm going to, oh, there's Trudeau. There's a Trudeau talking about Canadian identity if you want to see that video. There is some information about Quebec. There's the bonhomme de neige, and there's the Citadel in Quebec. There's Maurice Richard. There is the bonhomme de neige there. There's some information about the Haudenosaunee. And there is another video of, about Hiawatha. There's some information about the history in Canada about the Mohawk. Very brief information. This is also an interesting video. In particular, his very key conclusion sentences where he talks about why Canada is great at the end is a very fascinating conclusion in this video. And here is a video about the physical regions of Canada if you need to review the physical regions of Canada. There's Gaspésie. There's Gaspésie. There's a trip to Montreal and Mont-Tremblant. Okay. I hope you found this helpful, that there's some resources here on Teams to help you with this project. Thank you for watching this video, and take a look at my channel for other resources, including the video on how to write works cited in MLA 8 formatting, and also on my other videos on social study topics, including my 1-hour lecture on Canadian identity. Thank you for your time. Have a great night. And outtake time. Okay, things that we're gonna get edited from this video, but maybe I'll tag them on at the very end of this video in case you want to know. I put into Google physical regions of Canada, and you can see that you can find on Google really fast maps of the physical regions of Canada in digital format. Okay, also here I put into Google Canadian climate regions. Another way of looking at the regions of Canada, the climate regions. Make sure you take a look at that to see what's the climate region that you are visiting? What's the climate like that? What's the average weather there in the summer and the winter? And consider both the summer and winter climate. Okay, what else? Microsoft 365 is a resource here for you. Also, consider putting in First Nations language map into Google, or of course you can use the resources we have here at the school, including the First Nations Atlas. Take a look at the history of the First Nations people in the region. Imagine you're going to a museum in the region you're visiting, and you're looking at the history as well when you are in that region of the place you are visiting. Okay. Next, on the criteria, how you're going to be evaluated. Consider looking at the BC Social Studies 9 curriculum, and you can see there's big ideas. It talks about collective identity is constructed and can change over time. There's a big idea there. Then also down here under curricular competency, consider these key words here. Significance is one of the things I'm going to be looking for. Do you explain what is significant? Do you explain what is important? Evidence. Do you give evidence in terms of quotes? Do you use quotes in your work to show that you have done the research and you have your opinion because of some quote that you found? Continuity and change. This talks about what has happened in the past and how has it stayed the same and how has it changed over time. Say, for example, if we were to look at systemic racism in the area you go, how was it in the past and how has it changed and improved, and how has it stayed the same and how is there still some sense where it still needs to improve. Cause and consequence. Look at the domino effect of different things that have happened in that area. Perspective. That's going to be a key emphasis, a key focus for this project. I'm going to be very much looking to see that you've identified perspectives with this particular project. Perspectives on identities, perspective on current event issues that relate to your topic, and then of course with current event issues, ethical judgments. What's your opinion about that issue? So you want to look for debatable and controversial current events issues that relate to where you're going. Okay, next. If we go up here to the top, criteria D. Criteria D, if you want to think about how your teacher is thinking, you want to be thinking here with these words at the top. Here where the mouse is hovering, applying, analyzing, and evaluating. Okay, what's the difference between evaluating and creating, and why is creating at the top? Okay, evaluating is imagining, like, say, you're looking at the COVID-19 plan for British Columbia, and you're going to evaluate it. You're going to say what's right and wrong about it. That's evaluation, what you agree and disagree with it. Creating is where you're going to take it to the next level and you're going to say, I am going to create my whole new COVID-19 response plan and I'm going to write it out and show you my ideas. That's taking it to the creation level in terms of social studies, which is a little bit different, of course, than, say, art class or woodworking class or music class. But the idea is you're creating something that's showing your thinking. That's what it means, which is going to show your evaluation, your analysis, and your application of all of your ideas. Okay, so hopefully you found this video helpful, and hopefully you found these after notes helpful as well. Okay, I should also talk about one other of my favorite resources is word reference. Why do I like word reference? I find it's very powerful translator because of how it works. Don't not use Google Translate, but talk to your French teachers more specifically about what her or his favorite translation device is. Okay, so for example, if I put in a roller coaster into word reference to try and find out what roller coaster is, we can go scroll down and find out we got here roller coaster, and it's telling us montagne russe is the word to use, and here it's giving it in form of noun, feminine, plural. So there we have a word for roller coaster. Now the thing I like about word reference is if you scroll down here, it gives you more information. It gives you sentences in context about how to use the words. It gives you more information, expressions down below, which teaches you more about the language than just using something that Google Translate, which is going to create errors, and it's going to basically get you to do things that you're not really maybe fully understanding yet. But so basically, my personal opinion is I like word reference. For example, here it gives you more expressions down here. Win roller coaster, to ride a roller coaster. I love to ride on the roller coaster, and it gives you discussions here. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.